They had never touched, never kissed, not even once. Their entire love story lived in letters, ink and paper, hope between pages. He was an inmate. She was a woman from the outside. At least, that's what he believed. For 17 months, she wrote to him, listened to him, understood him in ways no one else ever had. She called him love before he remembered what that word even meant. When he proposed through paper and promises, she said yes. They were married 1 week later through prison paperwork. No ceremony, no rings exchanged, just signatures. And 1 month after the wedding, the prison granted them something rare, a private visitation room. No guards, no cameras. 2 hours alone for the first time. He spent days preparing, shaved twice, brushed his teeth until his gums bled, rehearsed the words he wanted to say when he finally saw her face. But no amount of preparation could ready him for what she would say instead. 2 hours later, she would be dead. He never raised his voice. He never used a weapon. But something inside him broke the moment she told him the truth. The question isn't why he killed her. The question is, what did she whisper that made a husband become a murderer? The first letter came on a Thursday. Jesse Miles had already stopped hoping the world outside remembered he existed. 3 years into his sentence at Linton Correctional, every day bled into the next. Same concrete, same clang of metal doors, same faces. No visitors, no calls, no birthdays, nothing. So when the counselor dropped the plain envelope on his tray during rec time, Jesse thought it was a mistake. But it had his name. Carefully written, neatly spaced. A woman's handwriting, you could tell. Inside, a simple note, short, gentle. Hi, Jesse. I don't know you, and you don't know me. I picked your name from the prison outreach list, but I don't believe in coincidences, I guess. I just needed someone to talk to. Maybe you do too. No pity, no preaching, no questions about what he'd done. She signed it Elara. He read the letter 6 times that night, then again in the morning. He didn't know why, but he kept it folded beneath his pillow. He waited 4 days before writing back. Jesse didn't know how to sound human anymore. His first reply was stiff, formal, filled with short sentences and too many scratched-out lines. I'm not good at this. I don't write much. I'm serving time, but that's probably obvious. Not sure what you're looking for, but thanks. I guess. Nobody's written me in a long time. He didn't expect a second letter. But she sent one anyway. And then another. Elara didn't ask about prison. She didn't ask about guilt. She asked what music he missed, what dreams he remembered from childhood, if he liked thunderstorms. She told him about her small apartment in Chicago, about her cat named Murphy, who knocked over every plant she tried to grow, about the book she was rereading for the 4th time. Over time, Jesse stopped filtering his words. He wrote about his sister, who used to braid his hair as a joke when they were kids, about the way prison food all tasted like boiled paper, about how he'd once wanted to open a motorcycle repair shop with his cousin, who was now dead. After 2 months, he realized something terrifying. He was waking up excited just to check for an envelope. A man serving time had no business falling in love, but somehow, without ever hearing her voice, without even knowing the shape of her laugh, he was beginning to. He didn't admit it, not even to himself, not yet. But one night, after lights out, he whispered her name in the dark just to hear how it sounded in his own voice. Elara. It started with small things. Jesse began counting the days between her letters, not with marks on the wall that was too obvious, too desperate. Instead, he kept track in his head, like someone memorizing tides. 3 days, sometimes 4, once, 5, and he felt something close to panic. But on the 6th day, it came, always. A pale envelope, her neat handwriting, and a few lines that made the gray of prison feel less endless. He started sharing things he'd never written down before. How he used to build little wooden models as a kid, even though his dad always told him it was a waste of time. How he hated the sound of buzzing fluorescent lights because they reminded him of hospital rooms. How he hadn't looked at his own face in a real mirror in over a year. Alara never judged. She responded with kindness that felt effortless. She told him about her insomnia, how she'd eat cereal at 2 a.m. and sit by the window just to hear the city breathe. She didn't talk about family, and Jesse never pushed. Some silences felt sacred. By the 6th month, the tone of their letters had shifted. There were still stories, still laughter, but now there were things unsaid between the lines. Jesse felt it in the way she wrote his name, the way she described how she missed hearing from him like it physically hurt. And one day, her letter ended with a single sentence. "Sometimes I think I'm more myself when I'm writing to you than when I'm with anyone else." He stared at that line for over an hour. When Jesse wrote back, he didn't try to sound strong. "I think about you every night. I imagine what your voice sounds like, your laugh, the way your eyes move when you're nervous. I don't even know if any of it's real, but I know the way you make me feel is." He folded the letter slowly, signed his name with more care than he had in years, and slipped it into the mailbox with a heart beating faster than he could explain. 3 weeks later, he received a photo. It wasn't provocative. It wasn't glamorous. Alara was sitting on the floor, barefoot in a sweatshirt, holding a cup of tea. Her legs were tucked beneath her. Her hair was up. Her eyes were warm. "It's not the best photo," the note said, "but I wanted you to see who you've been writing to. I hope you're not disappointed." Jesse wasn't. He tucked the photo under his mattress, not because he was ashamed, but because it felt like something he needed to protect. Even his cellmate, who usually cracked jokes about pen pals, stayed quiet when he saw the way Jesse looked at that picture. Letters became longer, more frequent, more vulnerable. Jesse told her about his fears, the ones he couldn't voice to anyone else. What if he came out and didn't know how to live? What if he wasn't fixable? Alara's response came 2 days later. "You're not broken, Jesse. Just bruised. Maybe I am too, but maybe bruised people see each other better." He reread that line a dozen times. Something shifted after that. He stopped calling her Alara in his letters. He started calling her love, my brightest thought, the reason I breathe through these walls. And one day, without planning it, he wrote, "I think I'm falling in love with you." He didn't cross it out. He didn't even hesitate. The next envelope arrived thicker than usual. Inside a small chain and a ring silver, simple, worn. Her letter was short. "I've been carrying this for a long time. I was saving it for someone who saw me for who I am. If it's okay, I'd like you to have it now." Jesse didn't show the ring to anyone. He kept it inside a folded sock at the back of his locker. At night, when the lights dimmed and the cell block fell quiet, he would press the cool metal to his palm and close his eyes. He'd forgotten what it meant to be wanted, but now he didn't want to live without her. Not anymore. The idea didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly in between words and days and ink, in between letters that smelled like home and promises that didn't feel like lies. Jesse didn't know what marriage was supposed to look like anymore, but he knew what it felt like to belong to someone. And somehow, that's what Alara had become. His and him. Hers. He thought about it for days before daring to write it down. Then erased it. Then wrote it again. 6 times, he rewrote the letter, not because he didn't mean it, but because he wanted every word to feel like a vow. "This might be the craziest thing I've ever said, But I don't want to spend another day imagining a life without you in it. I know we haven't met. I know it's insane, but I love you. And if you'll have me, I want to make this real. I want to call you my wife. Will you marry me?" He sealed the envelope with shaking hands. For the first time in years, he felt afraid, not of rejection, but of hope. 17 days passed before the reply came. It felt like 17 years. He paced the cell block like a man haunted, snapped at guards, lost sleep. Then, during evening mail call, the counselor slid an envelope under his cell door, thicker than usual. Inside, a letter, a photo, and something that made his chest seize up a silver ring hanging on a chain. The note read, "Yes, 1,000 times yes. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care where you are. You already have my heart. Now you have my yes. I'll wait for you, as long as it takes." The counselor handled the paperwork. The prison warden signed off. It wasn't romantic. No music, no flowers. Just 2 signatures, hers from the outside, his from the inside. The form was stamped "Inmate Marriage Approved." That was it. That's how Jesse Miles became a husband. No touch, no kiss, not even a phone call. Just ink on paper and a ring that never left his hand. The next few weeks were different. Guards noticed he smiled more. He said thank you for his meals. When his bunkmate cracked jokes, Jesse didn't ignore them. He still didn't talk about the wedding. But he folded Ilara's latest letter 12 times and kept it in his chest pocket over his heart. Then came the unexpected news. During his weekly counseling review, the supervisor cleared his throat awkwardly. "Because of your good behavior, and now that you're married, we're authorizing a conjugal visit, 2 hours, 1 month from today." Jesse froze. A visit, a real one. Face to face, no bars, no guards, no cameras. It felt unreal. "You'll get a private room," the counselor said. "Clean linens, basic refreshments, a call button, just in case." Jesse nodded. His mouth was dry. The moment the session ended, he ran back to his cell and grabbed a pen. "Ilara, it's happening. 1 month. They're giving us a visit, just you and me. A real one. I don't care what the room looks like. I just want to see you. I just want to hold your hand. Finally." He signed it. "With everything, I am your husband, Jesse." 3 days later, her reply came. The envelope was soft around the edges. The handwriting, still hers, was a little more uneven. "Jesse, I'm shaking as I write this. There's something I've kept to myself, not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't know how to tell you. I thought maybe I could wait, but I can't anymore. I will tell you, face to face, on the day we meet. Just remember, no matter what I say, nothing I've written to you was ever a lie. I love you. I always have." Jesse held the letter to his chest. He didn't know what she meant, but he didn't care. He was going to see his wife after 17 months of ink and longing. He was finally going to look into the eyes of the woman he loved. The morning of the visit, Jesse woke up before dawn. He didn't hear the morning count, didn't taste his breakfast, didn't feel the usual cold of the metal bench beneath him. His heart was somewhere else, a place no prison wall could touch. He shaved with trembling hands, borrowed a clean shirt from his bunkmate, even used the little bit of cologne left in his commissary stash, the one he saved for court dates and miracles. He couldn't stop checking his reflection in the cracked mirror, his hair, his collar, the tired hope in his eyes. "Big day," a guard asked, smirking. Jesse didn't answer, but the flush in his face said enough. Across the city, Ilara stood in front of her mirror, buttoning a pale yellow blouse. Her fingers trembled on every button. She applied a soft line of eyeliner, wiped it off, tried again, then stopped. Her mother hovered in the doorway. "You don't have to go," she said gently. "Yes, I do," Alara whispered. She touched the silver ring around her neck, the one Jesse had never seen in person, the one that had meant yes and "I'm yours." He deserves the truth. At the prison gates, Alara walked through a maze of gray halls and indifferent guards. They scanned her ID, checked her bag, patted her down, and hesitated briefly at the medical bandage taped beneath her blouse. She had a signed certificate. They let her through. But the way one of the female officers looked at her, like she already knew, made her knees wobble. Warden Brent met her at the final door. "You know the rules," he said flatly. 2 hours. There's a panic button if things go sideways. No cameras." He didn't smile, didn't blink. Just opened the door to the conjugal room and let her inside. The room wasn't romantic. A bed, a table with a thermos of stale coffee, a few folding chairs, a sink that dripped in the corner. But to Jesse, when the door opened, it looked like heaven. Because standing there in real breathing color was Alara. She was shorter than he imagined, softer. Her hair was a little longer than the photo, her eyes just as warm. Neither of them moved at first. Then Jesse stepped forward, and she did too. And suddenly she was in his arms. It was clumsy, tight, desperate. Not passionate, not yet just full of gravity. 17 months of dreams colliding into a single heartbeat. "You're real," he whispered against her hair. "God, you're real." She didn't speak. She just held him tighter. When they finally pulled apart, Jesse looked into her eyes and smiled. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined," he said. Alara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Jesse," she whispered, "we need to talk." He leaned in and kissed her soft and lingering. "We've got time," he murmured. But they didn't. Alara stepped back. Her hands shook. Her throat closed. She looked like she was about to cry. "Jesse, there's something you don't know about me." He blinked, confused, then smiled again, trying to lighten the moment. "What, you secretly hate dogs? You're actually a Yankees fan." "No," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's not a joke." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I was born different. I haven't always looked like this. I'm transgender." The room fell still, utterly, brutally still. The clock ticked once, then again, and Jesse's face changed not all at once, but slowly, like dawn turning to thunder. Jesse didn't speak. He just stared at her like the words didn't fit inside his ears. Like the syllables she had just uttered were from some foreign tongue he'd never learned. "Trans," what he asked finally, blinking slow. "What are you saying, Alara?" She took a breath that barely filled her lungs. "I'm transgender. I was born in a male body, but I've been living as a woman for years. Everything I wrote to you, all of it was still me, just not the way you expected." Jesse's hands dropped from her waist. He took a step back, as if her skin had suddenly burned him. His face twisted. First confusion. Then shame. Then something worse. "No," he said. "No. This is a joke, right? You're kidding." Alara didn't move. She just shook her head, eyes already glistening. "I didn't know how to tell you. I kept waiting for the right moment, but then the letters got deeper. Then we got married, and I couldn't lose you. I thought maybe if you saw me, really saw me, it wouldn't matter." "Matter," Jesse snapped. "Alara, you're telling me you're not even—" He stopped himself. But the words hovered, thick in the air. "I'm still the person you wrote to," she said softly. I'm still the one who read every word you sent, who waited for your letters like they were oxygen. I love you. I didn't lie to you about that. Jesse let out a sound, part scoff, part broken laugh. You didn't lie, he hissed. You sent me photos. You let me call you my wife. You let the whole damn prison think I had someone real waiting for me. What the hell do you call that? The room felt smaller now, the walls closing in, the silence inside Jesse more dangerous than any scream. You made me fall in love with you, he said, voice trembling. You let me dream of you every night. You let me write things I've never said to anyone. You let me want you. Alara stepped forward. I wanted you too. Don't, Jesse snapped, jerking back. Don't you dare say that to me. You let me plan a life. You let me carry your damn photo in my cell. You let me picture kissing you, touching you. His voice cracked. So did something inside him. He turned, walked to the edge of the room, dragged both hands down his face. His shoulders heaved not from tears, but from something more primal, a deep, guttural war between what he had believed and what had just been ripped away. Why now, he asked, without turning. Why today? Because I couldn't look you in the eyes without telling you, Alara said, because I thought maybe if I told you face to face, you'd feel what I feel. Jesse turned around slowly. There was something new in his eyes now. Not love, not even hate, but betrayal, the kind that doesn't heal. You know what the guys are going to say? When I go back, he said, voice dead, that I married a man, that I kissed a man, and that I dreamed about a man for 17 months. Alara's voice cracked. I'm not a man, I'm your wife. He stared at her for a long moment. Then looked down at the ring on his hand, the one that had once meant something. And slowly, deliberately, he slid it off. Let it drop to the floor. It hit the concrete with a sound that made Alara flinch. No, Jesse said quietly, you're not. Alara bent to pick up the ring from the cold concrete floor. Her fingers trembled as she held it in her palm, this tiny silver circle that once meant forever. Now it lay there like a discarded lie. Jesse, please, she whispered. We can talk through this. I know it's a shock, but... Talk? Jesse barked, his voice rising like a thunderclap. You want to talk now? He was pacing, back and forth, like a trapped animal in a cage. Hands gripping his hair, eyes wide and darting, breathing fast, too fast. You tricked me, he said through clenched teeth. You made me believe in something real. You made me weak. No, I didn't, Alara said, stepping toward him. You fell in love with me, with who I am, not my past, not my body, me. He stopped, turned to her. His eyes were no longer Jesse's, not the man who wrote poetry and letters, or who dreamed of lake houses and quiet mornings. These were the eyes of someone drowning and ready to pull someone else under to breathe. Do you know what happens to guys in here who fall for someone like you? He spat. I was respected, envied. I had a woman on the outside, a future, and now I'm the punchline. No one has to know, Alara said quickly. This room has no cameras. No one saw us. Please, Jesse, if you want to walk away, I'll let you. We can get an annulment, a divorce. You never have to see me again. He laughed, not from humor, from the sheer collapse of everything he believed about himself. You think this is about a damn annulment, he said, stepping closer. You think this is about saving face. His voice dropped to a whisper, but it was laced with fire. You broke me. Alara's breath caught in her throat. She could feel it, the shift, that dangerous stillness before a wildfire breaks loose. I'm sorry, she said softly. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to be loved as me. As what? Jesse snapped. as a lie wrapped in perfume, as a man in disguise. "I'm not a disguise," Alara said, her voice cracking. "I'm a woman. You knew my soul before you knew anything else." But Jesse wasn't hearing her anymore. He was somewhere else. Back in the prison yard, where men would laugh behind his back, back in the chow line, where whispers would ripple, back in his bunk, alone again, clutching a photo that now made him sick. 17 months, he muttered, staring past her. Every night, I imagined you, touched myself to you, told everyone I had a wife waiting for me. You do, she whispered. I am her. No, he said. You're the reason I'll never look any of them in the eyes again. Then something in him snapped. Like a cord pulled too tight. He stepped forward fast, too fast. Grabbed her wrists. Jesse Alara gasped. Let go! You're hurting me! You hurt me first, he growled. Now we're even. His grip tightened. Alara struggled. She wasn't strong enough. And in that moment she saw it. The look in his eyes. He wasn't going to stop. Alara's back hit the edge of the table. She let out a sharp gasp as Jesse shoved her, hard, against the wall. His hands trembled as they closed around her wrists, not with hesitation, but with rage boiling over. You tricked me! You made me feel something! He seethed, his voice trembling. And now everyone's gonna see me as a joke. A goddamn joke. I didn't trick you, Alara pleaded, her breath short. Jesse, please, this isn't you. But it was. Or maybe this was who he had always been, buried under loneliness, under pain, under an idea of masculinity too fragile to hold. Let go, she cried, twisting beneath his grip. You're scaring me. Good. He pushed her toward the bed, the same bed he had dreamed of laying her down on with tenderness, now a stage for something else entirely. You want to pretend you're a woman, he spat. Then prove it. No, Jesse, stop, don't. She fought, clawed, kicked. But he was stronger, fueled not just by betrayal, but by humiliation, by the haunting echo of every inmate's voice that would mock him once this truth got out. You lied, he growled. You made me want you. You made me believe. Because I loved you, she screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. I still do. That hasn't changed. Shut up, he roared, slamming his hand against the wall beside her head. You don't get to say that anymore. She was sobbing now. Still trying to reason with him, still trying to find the Jesse who once wrote her poetry, who told her she was his world. But that Jesse was gone. Something else had taken his place. And that something didn't want answers. It wanted revenge. He grabbed her throat. Not hard at first, just enough to frighten her. But then he squeezed. And kept squeezing. Alara's eyes widened in shock. She tried to speak to beg, but no sound came out. Her hands reached for his arms, pulling, scratching, anything to make him stop. Jesse, she mouthed, no air behind it. He didn't stop. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. In that moment, all he saw was the broken mirror of himself reflected in her eyes, a man who'd been made a fool, a man who'd been vulnerable, a man who'd loved someone the world wouldn't let him love. And so, with trembling fingers and tearless fury, he erased her. When she finally went still, Jesse's grip loosened. He stumbled backward, staring down at the unmoving body on the bed. Her blouse torn, her chest rising no more, her lips parted slightly as if she had died in the middle of one last plea. The silence was deafening. No guards came. No alarms rang. Just Jesse frozen and the unbearable realization. He had killed her. The only person who had ever truly loved him. Jesse didn't remember pressing the emergency button. He didn't remember the warden's voice through the intercom, or the guards kicking the door open, or being shoved against the wall and cuffed as Alara's body lay motionless behind him. It all passed in a blur like it was happening to someone else. He was numb, detached, floating above it all like a ghost watching his own arrest. Medical confirmed asphyxiation. Someone muttered over a radio, time of death estimated at 4:42. "Get him out of here," said another. As they dragged Jesse away, he turned once. Just once. Enough to see the flash of silver around Alara's neck, the ring he had given her still hanging from that delicate chain. He didn't cry. Not then. He just stared straight ahead, jaw tight, like a man walking into a storm he no longer feared. Because there was nothing left to fear. Back in the waiting room, Alara's mother, Margot Vale, sat watching the clock. It was 5:05. Their visit was supposed to end an hour ago. She clutched her purse tighter, forcing herself not to ask again, not to appear that kind of parent, the overbearing one. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Alara. It was a uniformed officer. Young, pale, voice too calm. "Mrs. Vale," he said, eyes avoiding hers. "I'm going to need you to come with me." "Why? What's going on?" "There's been an incident," he said flatly. "Your daughter, she's been hurt." The scream that tore from Margot's throat was one Jesse would remember forever, even from his solitary cell across the complex. In the days that followed, the headlines were brief, cold. Inmate murders spouse during private visit. Victim had withheld transgender identity. System under fire for lax oversight. The prison issued a single statement: "We are cooperating fully with the investigation." That was it. No mention of Alara's name. No mention of her life. No mention of the 17 months of letters that turned two strangers into something like soulmates before truth and rage burned it all to ash. In her apartment, Margot found the box. Alara's letters, hundreds of them, all from Jesse, tied in neat little bundles, labeled by month. She didn't want to read them, but she couldn't stop herself. The words spilled out like confessions. "I dream of you every night. Your words make me feel human again. You're the only thing that makes this place bearable." And then she found one Alara had never sent. A final draft. Unfinished. "Jesse, I'm terrified to tell you this, but I know I must." Margot's hands trembled as she read on. By the last line, she was weeping, not just for the daughter she lost, but for the love that had been real and crushed beneath the weight of shame, identity, and fear. Back in isolation, Jesse stared at the ceiling. The silence around him wasn't peaceful. It was crushing. All he could see was her face, not in the moment of rage, but in the hundreds of memories before that. Her laughter, her letters, the first photo she sent, the way her eyes sparkled when she teased him in writing. He had destroyed it all. And for what? To protect a pride that no longer mattered. To avoid laughter in a place where everyone was already broken. Now there were no letters, no voice, no dreams. Just him. Alone. It rained the day they buried her. The sky hung heavy, as if the earth itself couldn't bear what had been done. There were no crowds, No long lines of mourners, just Margot Vale, standing alone under a black umbrella, and a handful of people who had known Alara for who she truly was. No press, no speeches, just silence. And a name etched in stone that most of the world would never care to read. Alara Vale. She loved, she hoped, she was real. Margot lowered a single white rose onto the coffin. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "You were braver than anyone ever knew," she whispered. And in that moment, she vowed something. Your story will not be erased. Back in her apartment, Margot spent the next week sorting Alara's belongings. Most of it was ordinary books, scarves, journals. But inside Alara's top drawer was a sealed envelope. Unsent. Addressed in delicate cursive. To Jesse, if I never get the chance to say this in person. Margot stared at it for a long time. She didn't open it. She couldn't. But she knew what it was. The last words her daughter had ever tried to say. 2 weeks later, in prison, a package arrived in Jesse's cell. No return address. No warning. Just an envelope, sealed with red wax, and inside the letter. Her letter. He stared at it for hours before touching it. And when he finally did, his hands shook. Opening it felt like splitting open a wound that had never healed. But he read, "My Jesse, if you're reading this, it means I was too late, or too afraid, or both. I wanted to tell you sooner. I should have, but I loved you so much that I couldn't bear the thought of losing what we had before I even gave us a chance. I was born in a body that didn't match my soul. I've spent years becoming the woman I was always meant to be. I've had surgery. I've had pain. I've had joy. But you gave me something I never expected a reason to believe that I could be loved. Everything I wrote to you was true. Every word, every feeling, every hope. And if that truth changes how you see me, I understand. But know this, I never lied to hurt you. I only hid because I loved you. And I still do. If we never meet, or if you walk away, I'll grieve that. But I'll never regret the letters, because in them, we were real. And in them, I was yours. Always, Alara." Jesse didn't cry. Not right away. But something in him cracked a quiet shatter, like a window giving way under pressure. He folded the letter carefully, pressed it to his forehead, and whispered the only words he could find. "I'm sorry." That night, he dreamed of her. Not of her body, not of her face, but of her voice, reading to him, laughing with him, saying his name the way no one else ever had. The courtroom was silent as Jesse Carter stood to face sentencing. His hands were cuffed, his jumpsuit hung loose on his frame, like it no longer fit, like nothing in his life did anymore. He didn't look at the press, didn't glance at the guards, he only looked at the floor. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't explain. He just said one thing. "I killed the only person who ever truly saw me, and I will carry that for the rest of my life." The judge gave him 35 years to life. No outbursts, no drama, just the sound of a gavel echoing through a room that already felt dead. Outside the courthouse, a single voice rose. Margot Vale stepped in front of the microphones. The world had tried to twist her daughter's story into scandal, into tabloid fodder, into clickbait. But she wasn't going to let them have the last word. "My daughter was not a deception," she said, her voice clear. "She was not a trap, not a secret, not a freak. She was Alara, and she was loved. The video clip went viral in less than 24 hours. Thousands of comments flooded in. Some hateful, but many remorseful. I didn't expect to cry at this. I was ready to judge until I read the letters. I'm sorry, Alara, you didn't deserve this. She was a woman, and she was real. Back in prison, Jesse was moved to permanent isolation. Not as punishment, but for his own safety. The other inmates had seen the headlines. He was no longer a man with a beautiful wife. He was the inmate who got tricked. And in prison, humiliation spreads like wildfire. Jesse kept to himself, didn't speak, didn't write. But every night, he took out Alara's final letter, ran his fingers over her handwriting, whispered her name. And every night, he saw her in his dreams. Not how she died, but how she had lived. Laughing, teasing, telling him about clouds, movies, dogs she wanted to adopt, her favorite perfume. Things no one else in his life had ever bothered to ask. Years later, a teacher in a small college town stumbled across the archived court transcripts and wrote an article. The Letters of Alara Vale, a love story too honest for this world. It won an award. It sparked debate. It made some people uncomfortable, made others feel seen for the first time. But most importantly, it made people remember her by her name. Not by how she died, but by what she loved, who she was, and how deeply she had believed that love, even in the most impossible place, was still worth chasing. Some stories end in silence. Some stories end in tragedy. This one ends in both. But between the silence and the grief, a voice still whispers, "Whatever you are, I will love you always."